Welcome to Chapter 1, Section 2 lecture. Section 2 is entitled Economic Concepts, and it's going to refer to introduce a lot of vocabulary terms. As consumers, we have wants. We want a car, we want a hamburger, we want a new coat, we want a haircut. Okay? So what do we use to satisfy our needs and wants? Well, we use goods and services. And in fact, that's what our economy produces. What are goods? Goods are things that we can touch, like a car or a hamburger or a computer. Okay? Goods can be categorized a couple of different ways. There's consumer goods, goods that are used by you and I, like a hamburger or a car or a couch or a television set. Those are consumer goods. Capital goods are goods that are used to produce other goods and services. Goods that are tools and equipment. For example, a frosty machine is used to make a frosty. A frosty would be the consumer good. The frosty machine would be a capital good because we can touch both of those. So goods can be either consumer goods or capital goods. They can be durable goods or non-durable goods. Durable goods are goods that last for 3 or more years, okay? Like an automobile or a house or a piece of furniture or an appliance. Those are all durable goods. Non-durable goods are goods that last for less than 3 years, okay? Like clothing or hopefully your toothbrush. These are all considered non-durable goods. And the reason we differentiate them is for descriptive purposes. Sometimes we'll describe the economy by saying durable goods orders were down 4% last month, meaning that people are buying 4% fewer durable goods. That's a way of describing. So goods are things that we can touch, and we use goods to satisfy our wants. We also use services. Services are work that is performed for us. Somebody doing something for us, like mowing our lawn, or washing our car, or giving us a haircut. These are all services. Sometimes we combine both goods and services together. If you go to a restaurant, are you buying a good or a service? Well, you're actually buying both. The food that you get is the good because you can touch that. The service is someone cooking it and delivering it to your table for you. So we as consumers, we use goods and services to satisfy our needs and wants. And that's what businesses create. Businesses create the goods and services that we use to satisfy our needs and wants. All goods have a value. Some goods are more valuable than others. A Mercedes-Benz is more valuable than a Ford Escort. A diamond ring is more valuable than a pair of tennis shoes. Okay? Well, what determines the value of something? Economists have worried about this or looked into this for many years. Why are some things more valuable than others? And they came up with the idea that value is a function of two things. For something to have value, it has to be relatively scarce. Okay? That's why diamonds are valuable, because they're a very rare material. Okay? But it's not just being rare. Okay? For example, in our house, we have a very rare painting. It's the only one of its kind. My daughter, when she was in preschool, she did a finger painting. We have her first finger painting. It's a very rare thing. Okay? If you were to go out in the yard, you might find a 4-leaf clover. That's very rare. Is my daughter's painting valuable? Is a 4-leaf clover valuable? They're rare, but that doesn't necessarily make them valuable, because value is more than simply being rare. It also has to have utility. Utility is an economic concept that refers to the usefulness or the satisfaction something generates. Okay? Water has a great deal of utility. It helps us stay alive. It helps us to grow crops, and has many, many uses that provide a lot of satisfaction or usefulness to us. Is water a very valuable, very pricey item? Well, not really. Because why? Because it doesn't have scarcity. Okay? It's not a very rare item. I know when we have a drought it's more rare, but by and large water is not a very rare item. So even though it has a lot of utility, it doesn't have rareness. Okay? For something to have a great deal of value, it has to have both. Do diamonds have both rareness and utility? Because diamonds are very valuable, they must. Okay? Diamonds have a obviously are rare, but do they generate usefulness or satisfaction? Ladies, right? We say diamonds are a girl's best friend. They do generate a lot of satisfaction for a lot of people. And that's why diamonds are more valuable than water, even though water is more useful, because water has utility but not a lot of rareness. So when we talk about the value of something, the value of a home or the value of a car, or the value of a diamond or a piece of clothing, it's because it's worth more dollars, and it's worth more dollars because it has more rarity or rareness, and it provides more utility. Now, utility is a moving target. Okay? What provides utility to you and provides utility to me could be very different. For example, I enjoy country music, so I would pay more money. It provides more satisfaction to me to go see a country music concert than it might provide to you. Okay? The next definition is wealth. Wealth and value are connected, because when we talk about the wealth of an individual or the wealth of a country, we're not talking about how much money they have. We're talking about the value of all of the goods that they've accumulated. So if we talk about my individual wealth, we would be saying, well, what does Mr. Ward own that has value? What goods does he own? Well, I own a house, I own a car, I own clothing and furniture and appliances and a television set. I have stocks and I have money in the bank. These are all things that have value. Okay? If we were to say, what is the value of a country? We would add up the value of all the goods that we have in the United States. And that refers to the concept of wealth. Wealth is not about money, but rather the value of all the goods that that individual or a country is able to create. Okay? We know that the United States is a wealthier country than Mexico. And we're going to explore during the rest of the semester why that's true, but what makes us a wealthier country? Because we have more goods that have greater value than they do down in Mexico. And how do we create these goods that have value? Well, on page 15, they have a very important diagram called the circular flow of economic activity. The circular flow of economic activity explains how goods and services are created in our country. And as the goods and services are created, our wealth continues to grow. You'll notice that on that diagram there are two main parts. On one side, at 3 o'clock on the diagram as you look at it, would be individuals. That would be people like you, me, and your parents. And then on the other side of the diagram, at say 9 o'clock, are the businesses. Okay? How are the individuals and the businesses connected? Okay? Well, we use the term economic interdependence, and that's actually described for you on page 17. But economic interdependence, the idea of interdependence, means that I need you and you need me. The word inter means between, so interdependent. There's a dependency between groups. And in the case of the circular flow model of economic activity, that interdependence means that I need the businesses and the businesses in turn need me. And you can see that in the diagram there on page 15. What is it that we need the businesses for? How do we depend upon the businesses? Well, the businesses are the institutions that make the goods and services that we want. Okay? Businesses like In-N-Out make the hamburgers that I want. Okay? And that's what's going on at the top of the diagram. Through what we call the product market, businesses provide the goods and services, the products that we as individuals want. Those are the inside arrows. Okay? The inside arrows go from the from the businesses to the individuals. So we have businesses and we have individuals. From the businesses to us go the goods and services. The goods and services that we want. The hamburgers or the haircuts. And then what goes back? How do the businesses give us those goods and services? The outside arrows going counterclockwise is money. Money goes from our hands for the goods and services to the businesses. So obviously we are dependent upon the businesses. But in what way are the businesses dependent upon us? Okay. Well, down at the bottom of the diagram, what is it that we provide for the businesses? Well, we learned back in section 1, in order for the businesses to produce goods and services, they need the factors of production. Okay? So as individuals, we provide those factors of production. The land, the labor, the capital, and the entrepreneurship. We provide, most of the time, our labor. We provide our labor to the businesses so that they can make the goods and services. Could In-N-Out make hamburgers? Could they make hamburgers without our workers? No, without our labor. Okay? So what do the businesses give us in return for our labor? Well, again, this is the money that goes back. Businesses give the money to us for our labor. If you have a job at In-N-Out or any other place, okay, why do you give them your labor? Why do you provide that factor of production to the businesses? Because they give you money. So without us, could the businesses produce the goods and services? They could not. So obviously businesses depend upon us to provide the factors of production. And we provide, what do we depend on the businesses for? To take those factors of production, the land, labor, capital, entrepreneurship, to mix them together to create hamburgers that we want to buy. Okay? So without us, the businesses couldn't exist. And without the businesses, we wouldn't get the goods and services that we want, and we would cease to exist. So we use the term economic interdependence to describe the idea that we need the businesses, and the businesses in turn need us. Okay? That diagram is very important. You're going to need it for the test. Okay? So we as individuals depend upon the businesses to provide the goods and services, but the businesses depend upon us to provide them with the factors of production. Okay? Businesses, like us, face scarcity. Everybody faces scarcity. You and I face it. Your parents face it. The school faces it. Okay? We have a limited amount of resources to make all the goods and services that we want. So a business wants to be as productive. We're on page 16 now. A business wants to be as productive as possible with those resources. What does that mean, to be as productive as possible? Well, when we use the term productivity, we're referring to how many goods and services can be made with our resources. For example, when I was younger, I used to mow lawns to make money. My resources, my factors of production, were me and my lawnmower and 1 hour of work. And when I was younger, really younger, I could only produce or mow about 2 lawns in an hour. So my productivity was 2 lawns per hour. But then I got older and I got stronger and I was able to work faster. And so I was able to produce or mow 3 lawns in an hour. So what happened to my productivity? It went up. I was able to produce more goods and services with the same amount of resources. And that's the goal of every business, is to improve productivity, to take their limited amount of resources and produce as many goods and services as they can. Even Charter Oak High School is trying to do that. Excuse me. We're trying to produce as many goods and services. In this case, we're trying to get you to learn as much as we can with our limited amount of resources. And how does a business improve productivity? Because that's the goal of every business. Whether it's In-N-Out making hamburgers, or Charter Oak High School educating students, or a barbershop cutting hair. How can we produce more? Well, there are 2 basic ways that the book describes for improving productivity. The first of which is to invest in human capital. Human capital refers to the workers. Let's invest or spend money in making the workers better. And what could be done to make the workers better? Well, we could educate or train the worker. Do you think that a trained and educated worker is going to be a more productive worker? Of course. If you have a job, did they just start you off one day and say, okay, you're hired, ready, go? Or did they provide some sort of training so that you'd be a more productive worker? Before we started our excuse me, distance learning, the school provided staff development, professional development, for us to learn how to Zoom and how to use Google Classroom so that we would be more productive. They were investing time, money, and effort to make the workers more productive. So we haven't changed the number of teachers or the number of workers, but we're a more productive worker because we're trained and educated. So the first way to improve productivity is to invest in the worker. Make the worker more educated, train them, motivate them, they'll be more productive. The second one is the division and specialization of labor. Take the job of producing the goods and services and divide it up into separate tasks. And then allow the workers to specialize in a particular task. For example, the one they use in the book is an excellent example. Henry Ford's assembly line. If you remember your history class, Henry Ford produced the first mass-produced automobile, the Model A. Okay? And when he first started doing it, he put all the workers in a room and gave them a bunch of tools and said, all right, build the car. And it took him a day and a half to build that car. But then he said, wait a minute, what if we use an assembly line where we divide up the job and say, okay, you're going to put on the tires, you're going to put in the seats, you're going to put in the windows, you're going to put in the engines. And he allowed those workers to specialize in that particular task. All day long, the window guy just did windows. All day long, the seat guy just put in the seats. And what happened was they became much more productive. Still the same number of workers, still the same number of tools, but they now were able to build the car, instead of a day and a half, they were able to build it in an hour and a half. Okay? That's the division and specialization of labor. In fact, we use it at Charter Oak High School. Okay? The English teachers, we divide up your education into subjects: English, math, social science, science, foreign language, the arts. Okay? And then we allow the teachers to specialize in a particular discipline. The math teachers teach math, the English teachers teach English, and the science teachers teach science. And we're better for it. You get a better education. I might be able to teach science, but not nearly as good as the science teachers. Okay? And so by dividing and specializing the task, we become more productive. And as the workers become more productive, they're able to produce more goods and services. And as our economy becomes more productive, then our economy is going to grow. And back on page 16 there, at the top page 16, they talk about economic growth as one of the goals of any economy. We want to consistently produce more goods and services. In order to do that, we have to make the workers more productive. We have to come up with new techniques. We have to come up with better educated, better trained workers. And so that's constantly improving worker productivity, which leads to economic growth, and increases in economic growth are better for our economy. And that's the end of section 2. We'll be coming back for our discussion here in just a few moments, and then we'll be starting section 3.